Frankie Russo, straight out of Brooklyn. Frankie Russo show. You better believe it. How you all doing? Yeah, so crazy. This is the Friday night show. YouTube Live. Frankie Russo coming straight out of Brooklyn. How you doing? Russo disclaimer. We start the show off with a Russo disclaimer. We're on the outside looking in. It's on that we've decided to put out this statement for the record. We don't sit on any U.S. Congressional Oversight Committee, nor are we a member of the International Atomic Energy Agency, nor do we sit on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and nor do we sit on the National Security Council. In other words, we don't have access to any classified documents. With great care, thought, and responsibility, based on court papers, judges' decisions, peer-reviewed journal articles, and well-researched open-source articles, we search for statistical, quote-unquote, statistical significance. In all likelihood and in all probability, we look for trends, inferences, patterns, and then we attempt to conceivably reach responsible conclusions. By the way, we believe our conclusions that we've reached on frankierusso.media and americasteam.today is we are very close. 18-part series, the Obama-Clinton crime family. 18-part series. You better believe it. Frankie Russo show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's where we start. So just to give you I want to give you a few quick hits, a few sidebars, and then we'll get into the main stuff we're going to talk about today. I got some articles here, some stuff we're going to quickly hit on, and then I'm not going to hit that one yet. So we got this, little sidebars on North Korea a little bit, with Japan, just to we're going to keep an eye on it. And then we got Sessions and the 46, including Preet Bharara. We got that. So right now, I got a few sidebar articles before we get to the main thrust, which is let's go here. Amazing U.S. debt decreased by more than 60 billion since the Trump inauguration. That's one article. This is reported by the Gateway Pundit. Okay, so we'll get more on this. The Gateway Pundit leans to the right, so we're going to get more data. So right now it's looking like the Trump Make America Great Again movement. The U.S. debt is decreased, and they actually had the data to show it, which is pretty interesting, just to give you a little overview in the article. So this is what I mean about an open source, well-researched open source article. There's sources in there. So it's not like they write an article and there's no sources in the article. So we'll see, all right? The Gateway Pundit is claiming the U.S. debt decreased by more than 60 billion since the Trump inauguration. So we're going to see. We're going to see, okay? I'm trying to get like a Reuters article because Reuters hates Trump, Strong U.S. job growth, rising wages set stage for Fed rate hike. This is by Reuters. Okay, since Trump, it's all fair game, man. He's the president, so it goes with the territory. And DT is unequivocally one of the hardest working presidents in our history, and he's looking to make things happen. And so that's where we're at with that one. This is Reuters. And I'm concerned about this Fed hike. I don't know. When I start hearing Fed rate hikes, I'm concerned. So we'll see. We're gonna look at that one. And here's now we're gonna watch this closely. The North Korea fires 4 missiles into sea near Japan. This is The Guardian. I'm concerned about this one. We're gonna watch this one. North Korea fires 4 missiles into sea near Japan. We're going to follow this one closely. It's my understanding that Secretary of State Tillerson is going out to Asia, so with North Korea acting up a little bit. So we'll see what happens over there. I'm not sure about that one. Okay, as North Korea missile threat grows, Japan lawmakers argue for first strike options. So here's another article. This is by Reuters. Reuters hates Trump. So as North Korea missile threat grows, Japan lawmakers argue for first strike options. We'll see. That's been reported by The Guardian. This is reported by Reuters that Sessions asked 46 Obama-era U.S. attorneys to resign, including a fairly aggressive assistant district attorney of the Southern District, Preet Bharara. So we'll see what happens over there. You know, the Trump administration has to do their job. He got rid of all of the Obama appointees. So DT and his administration has to do their job. They got to clean and drain the swamp. So that's what they're doing here. This is by Reuters, if I'm not mistaken. Reuters it is. And I got some other sidebar stuff. This is an interesting one. As many as 48 million. See, I've been having a problem with my Twitter account, you know. My Twitter numbers have been going through the roof up until the last few days where they've done, I don't know. Some my friends, my IT friends tell me there's algorithms with Twitter, and I don't know. All I know is my impressions were going into the hundreds of millions. My amplified impressions were in the hundreds of millions. But now the last 3 days, I mean, it's crazy. I can't even tweet, and it's crazy. So I don't know what is going on with my Twitter account, but I'm working on it. As many as 48 million Twitter accounts aren't people. They're conceivably bot accounts, according to CNBC. Not a Trump. They hate Trump, CNBC. So as many as 48 million Twitter accounts aren't people. The study claims they're bot accounts. So we'll see. We'll see how that unfolds. And here's another one by Mashable.com. Twitter is now making entire profiles as sensitive. Twitter's trying to take on its troll problem in 2017, but the campaign is not without problems. In addition to a range of tools aimed at filtering abusive tweets, the platform is running a test in which entire accounts are being marked as sensitive. On Thursday, a Mashable reporter clicked on the profile of a technology analyst. Instead of showing his image on his tweets, the account blocked his profile image and included a caution. This profile may include potentially sensitive content. That's insane. Wow. So we'll see. This is a Mashable.com article. So there's maybe some evidence that Twitter's having problems and Twitter's monitoring their accounts, and I'm experiencing problems with my Twitter account. It was very active at one point, but the last 3 days it has gone down considerably. So that's where I'm at with that. And then I got a few more before I get to the article on. I got this Clooney article. I didn't get the title of it. This Clooney, his wife, he married a Muslim lady. So I got the Clooney wife. I got, okay, so I'm going to report that. So I'm not going to get into this other one yet. So I got this right now. The BBC, U.S. hails 40% drop in illegal immigrants from Mexico. Homeland Security Chief General John Kelly said the change in trends was a result of Donald Trump's tough policies. The president has signed an executive order for an impassable physical barrier on the U.S.-Mexican border and issued new guidance on deportations. So this is reported by the BBC. So it's trending in the right direction. At the least, it's acting as a deterrent. At the least. So I'm going to try to get a better article on Clooney's wife. She's a human rights attorney, and she spoke out against the world's nation, the world's. She spoke out. She's representing an Iraqi lady, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Nadia Murad, a Yazidi woman captured by ISIS in Iraq in 2014, and she's just claiming that she urged Iraq and the world nations not to let ISIS extremists get away with genocide. So I don't know, man. Obviously, we are fiercely opposed. I want to get a better article on this, so I'm going to just. I don't have a good. This is what I have right now, but I'm going to get a better article on this. This was published by Yahoo, but it's associated. This was published on the Yahoo.com, but it was written by the first name of the individual was erased because I didn't get the whole article, unfortunately. But it was written by Associated Press, so they hate Trump. So we'll see. I'm going to get a better article next time. It was Clooney's wife. Don't let the Islamic State get away with genocide, by a Ladira. I'm not sure I don't have the full name, but that's the article. Clooney's wife speaking at the UN. Clooney's wife speaking at the UN. I'm going to have a better article Sunday night. I'm going to try to find it. And we got this here by Associated Press. GOP rep Obama stayed in Capitol to run shadow government. A Pennsylvania congressman has accused former President Barack Obama staying in Washington solely to run a shadow government to undermine the GOP agenda. This is reported by Associated Press. So they hate Trump. Okay, Associated Press hates Trump. So that's some of the sidebars we got going on today. So I want to get to now. Oh, also, I haven't read, and I don't intend to read the new healthcare plan that's being put out by the House. And Paul Ryan had this big presentation or whatever. I didn't read. I'm not gonna. So what happened was I was browsing around some various broadcasts today, and I heard Rand Paul talk about it. According to Rand Paul, he's not down with this new plan that's being put out by the House, claiming that there's subsidies, taxes. What I really found, I don't know about all this stuff, and he also claimed that there's an insurance company bailout in this new plan, which I'm not too sure, but this is what Rand Paul is claiming. What I find rather disheartening, he's also claiming that there's the mandate is still in place, which I opposed from Jump Street with Obama. And if that's true, if that mandate is still in place in this House, in this new healthcare bill by the House, I'm very disappointed if that's the case. I hope not, because I'm against the mandate. All these other things I have to find out more about, the subsidiaries and the subsidies and the taxes and the insurance company bailout. I'm not too familiar with that. But the mandate, if that's still in place, I'm very disappointed, I have to say. I hope Paul Ryan and these established Republicans, these rhinos, I hope Donald Trump and Rand Paul give them a hard time about this, because I'm against the mandate. I'm sorry, I'm against it. So with that, I'm going to go into the final thing on this article, the New Yorker Magazine article, The Shadow Commander it's by Dexter Filkins. It's on General Soleimani is the Iranian operative who has been reshaping the Middle East. Now he's directing Assad's war in Syria. And this is the article. It's a New Yorker Magazine article. They hate Trump, straight up, okay? They hate Trump, straight up. So I'm on the last 7 pages. I'm going to read some excerpts from it. I underlined some interesting things. And then I don't think I didn't get a chance to do a overall summation, so I'm going to save that for Sunday night, and I'm going to upgrade my board. I'm going to show you my board again tonight, and for Sunday night, I'm going to have a new board upgraded. I'm going to have the summation from this article, and then Sunday night I'm going to start in Sudan with Omar al-Bashir, and from Sudan I'm going to see, because we got Osama bin Laden there. I want to see what's going on over there. I want to see where that takes us, because I'm interested in Turkey as well. And then I'm also interested in Sudan and Turkey and their relations in this global jihad struggle between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And then I'm going to see what we're going to bring in North Korea into this mix with Bill Clinton, who had a lot to do with North Korea's situation, with investigative reporter Kenneth Timmerman, his work with WorldNet Daily, and some other stuff we'll bring in with Lee Smith. He wrote an article with Iran. If North Korea has if North Korea proliferated, has weapons of mass destruction, so is Iran. So we'll see. So we're gonna, over the next few weeks, we're gonna be very busy. It's gonna be really interesting, and then obviously we'll keep up to date with the Donald Trump, with the DT train, and see with the Make America Great Again. He came out with this. He has this political pact called America First, which I think is brilliant. I think it's great, and tip my cap. Congratulations to Katrina Pearson, who's the spokesperson, the spokesperson for America First. Katrina Pearson. She was on Fox News today. It's really interesting. So it's great. So I'm going to go through some excerpts from the final, the Shadow Commander, General Soleimani. So where we left off was the Lebanese Prime Minister Harani was killed, and he was assassinated. So prosecutors identified the alleged Hezbollah assassins by means of this is interesting, by means of co-location analysis, matching disposable cell phones used at the time of the murder and with other phones that belong to the suspects. They refrained from indicting Syrian officials, but they said they had convincing evidence that Assad's government was involved in Harani's killing. This was the Prime Minister of Lebanon. And according to this other investigative reporter, the Iranians, according to the special tribunal, theory of the case was that Hezbollah pulled the trigger, but could not and would not have done so without the blessings of the logistical support from both Syria and Iran. One of the phones believed to have been used by the killers had made at least a dozen calls to Iran before and after the assassination. So this is some of the excerpts. In addition, one of these assassins was Mustafa Badrin. Mustafa Badrin is the brother-in-law to Ahmad Muqaji, and Ahmad Muqaji is considered the mastermind of the 1983 Beirut bombing with Iran and Hezbollah that it killed, unfortunately, over 200 plus Marines. And this Mustafa Badrin is a longtime Hezbollah bomb maker, was spotted in Syria by rebels, and who say that he is fighting for Assad. In addition to this article, Soleimani, obviously this article is about Soleimani, he invited senior Shiite and Kurdish leaders to meet with him in Tehran and Qom, extracted from them a promise to support Maliki, who ended up being the new prime minister for Iraq. Maliki and Assad disliked each other, according to Dexter Filkins in this article. Soleimani brought them together by forging an agreement to build a lucrative oil pipeline from Iraq to the Syrian border. I'm going to look into that. I'm thinking about that. And then most notably, according to the Iraqi and Western officials, there were two conditions that Soleimani imposed on. Soleimani had a lot to do with this new Iraqi government. Soleimani imposed on the Iraqis. The first was that Jalal Talabani, a longtime friend of the Iranian regime, become president. Second was that Maliki and his coalition partners insist that all American troops leave the country. So what really came out to be a crazy scenario, there was this pro-American. So with that going on, Americans, we're saying that, that according to this article, Americans publicly that were over in Iraq are congratulating themselves for putting the government together. But according to this article, that's not the reason why they left. The reason why they left was that General Soleimani told them that he was involved in the Americans leaving, having to leave Iraq. And there was this pro-American secular politician, Alad al-Alawi, whose party had won the most parliamentary seats in the elections that led up to the Maliki being the prime minister. In an interview in Jordan, he said that the U.S. backing, he said with the U.S. backing, they could have built a majority, but that didn't happen out. Now, Alawi, as said, he suspected the Americans weren't willing to deal with the trouble the Iranians would have made if he had become prime minister. They wanted to stay in Iraq, he said, but only if the effort involved was minimal. He said he needed American support, but listen to the way he finished this. He said this pro-American secular politician, Ayad Alwani, claiming that he needed American support to win, but the Americans weren't supporting him to become prime minister. They were supporting Maliki because, according to this article, Dexter Filkins, Soleimani had a lot to say who was going to be this new Iraqi government. And he finished his quotes, Ayad al-Yani, with, but they wanted to leave. According to the Americans, they wanted to leave, and they handed the country to the Iranians. Iraq is a failed state now, an Iranian colony. It's crazy. It's interesting. I never heard that before. An Iranian colony. According to American and Iraqi foreign officials, Soleimani exerts leverage over Iraqi politics by paying officials, by subsidizing newspapers and television stations, and when necessary, by intimidation. Few are immune to his enticements. I have yet to see one Shia, Iran's a Shia from the Shia sect of Islam, one Shia political party not taking money from Soleimani. He's the most powerful man in Iraq without question. Even Maliki often feels like a prisoner of the Iranians. Exiled by Saddam, Maliki lived for a short time in Iran, but then moved to Syria, in part to escape Iranian influence. Maliki's government is presiding, according to former senior intelligence officer, Maliki's government is presiding over a number of schemes amounting to, this is where this article gets really interesting. Maliki's government is presiding over a number of schemes amounting to hundreds of millions of dollars a year to help the Iranian regime outwit Western economic sanctions. You wonder why the Obama-Clinton crime family is out there. A prominent Iraqi businessman told Dexter Filkins, the author of this article, that Iranian-backed agents regularly use the Iraqi banking system to undertake fraudulent transactions that allow them to sell Iraqi currency at a huge profit. If the banks refuse, they are shut down by the government. Now, I don't have evidence to prove that that's true, but I'm going to tell you, I was listening to a radio program, and if I'm not mistaken, it was the Center for Security Policy, and the host of that radio program was Frank Gaffney, and he was interviewing one of my favorite investigative reporters on radical Islam was Kenneth Tillerman. Kenneth Tillerman, who wrote the book Dark Forces, the Truth About Benghazi, was claiming that the Iranian Quds Force is out in Iraq with General Soleimani, and they float currency in the Iraqi banks and garner conceivably billions of dollars annually. And maybe this is what they're referring to. So I'm going to definitely explore this further to have a better understanding on what's going on, and maybe that's the reasons why the Obama-Clinton crime family, the Clinton Foundation, is all over that region. Only God knows the monies that Obama and the Obama-Clinton crime family have in these banks doing the deeds. And the other main source of revenue for the Iranians' oil, according to this article, is Maliki's government. Listen to this one. Maliki, the new prime minister of Iraq at the time, government set aside the equivalent of 200,000 barrels of oil a day, about $20 million worth at the prices at the time, and sends the money to Soleimani. Quds Force has made itself immune to the economic pressures of the Western sanctions. It's a self-funding covert action program. Soleimani doesn't even need the Iranian budget to fund his operations. This is like crazy stuff. So I'm definitely looking into this because I know that the Iranian oil companies have been sanctioned. So it's pretty interesting by the U.S. Treasury. Syrian technicians preparing bombs carrying the nerve. Okay, now we're getting into some stuff too, some more stuff. The Syrian technicians preparing bombs carrying the nerve agent sarin to be loaded onto aircrafts. All indications were that they were plotting an enormous chemical attack. This is according to Dexter Filkins. This is the article. Where's the article? It's right here. Here's the cover of the article. I want everybody to understand where I'm reading from. The Shadow Commander. It's a New Yorker magazine article. They hate Trump. Okay? They hate Trump. All indications were that they were plotting an enormous chemical attack. Frantic, the Americans called leaders in Russia, who called their counterparts in Tehran. According to the American defense official, Soleimani appeared to be instrumental in persuading Assad to refrain from using chemical weapons. Assad, according to American officials, Assad had a more pragmatic inspiration for not using the chemical weapons at this instance. The fear of provoking American military intervention. Both the Russians and the Iranians have said to Assad, we can't support you in the court of world opinion if you use chemical weapons. The regime is believed to, listen to this is in the article. The regime, I'm reading strictly from the article. The regime is believed, verbatim, to have, the regime is believed to have used chemical weapons at least 14 times since this article was written, which I think was, if I'm not mistaken, 2010, 2000, something like that. 2010, 2009, 2011, 2012, something like that. 13, maybe 2013, something like that. The regime is believed to have used chemical weapons at least 14 times since last year. Yet, even after the enormous sarin attack this past August of last year, which killed 1,400 civilians, Soleimani's support for Syria has been unbending. To save Assad, Soleimani has called on every asset he built since taking over the Quds Force. Hezbollah fighters, Shiite militiamen from around the Arab world, and all the money and material he could squeeze out of his own besieged government. In Baghdad, a young Iraqi called himself Abu Hassan, claiming that he was recruited to fight by a group of Iraqi men, and he took a bus to the Iranian city of Mashhad, where he and 36 other Iraqis received 2 weeks of instruction from Iranian trainers. Near Damascus, where they spent 3 months fighting for the Assad government, along with soldiers from Hezbollah and snipers from Iran. Soleimani's greatest accomplishments may be persuading his proxies in the Iraqi government to allow Iran to use its airspace to fly men and munitions to Damascus. This is interesting too as well. General James Mattis, who's now the Secretary of Defense, was the commander of all American military forces in the Middle East at one time, told Dexter Filkins that without this aid from General Soleimani, the Assad regime would have collapsed months ago. The flights are overseen by the Iraqi Transportation Minister Haddadi al-Amiri, who is an old ally of Soleimani's, the former head of the Bad Brigade and a soldier of the Iranian side in the Iran-Iraq war. Amiri denied that the Iranians were using Iraqi airspace to send weapons, but he made clear his affection for his former commander, General Soleimani. Now, this is interesting too now. So Maliki has resisted pressure to supply Assad over land through Iraq, but he hasn't stopped the flights. The reason why he hasn't stopped the flights, according to this article, the prospect of a radical Sunni regime in Syria, because Maliki is a Shia, a Shiite, a prospect of a radical Sunni regime in Syria overcame his reservations about becoming involved in a civil war. Maliki dislikes the Iranians. He loathes Assad, but he hates al-Nurusha. He doesn't want an al-Qaeda government in Damascus. Wow. To save his Iranian empire in Syria and Lebanon, Soleimani has helped fuel a Sunni-Shia conflict that threatens to engulf the region for years to come, a war that he appears happy to wage, Soleimani. He had every reason to believe that Iran is the rising power in the region, according to General Mad Dog Mattis. We've never dealt him a real body blow. Recently, President Hassan Rouhani was elected in Iran, promising to end the sanctions, which have exhausted the country and demolished its middle class, which I quite frankly don't believe they care, because for whatever reason, all the sanctions at the time and their economy was hit hard by the U.S. sanctions. Centrifuges continued to go up on their nuclear program, yet economically the middle class is getting destroyed, and the middle class was getting destroyed, and people were doing horribly within the Iranian economy pre-Obama, until Obama lifted the sanctions. So this Islamic Republic of Iran didn't care about their people. All they cared about is getting the centrifuges, is proliferating with nuclear capability. That's all the Islamic Republic of Iran cared about. So all this other stuff is baloney. So finally, but a less sympathetic regime in Syria to Iran, according to this article, would split the axis of resistance and radically complicate Iran's partnership with Hezbollah. And according to some scholars, in this article, Rouhani tries to engage the West. He will have to contend with the hardliners, including Soleimani. This is the new president of Iran, Rouhani, including Soleimani and his comrades, who for more than a decade have defined their foreign policy as a covert war on the U.S. and Israel. For Soleimani, giving up Assad would mean abandoning the project of expansion that has accompanied him for 15 years. In a recent speech before the Assembly of Experts who choose the Supreme Leader, which is the Ayatollah, he spoke about Syria in fiercely determined language. We don't pay attention to the propaganda of the enemy, because Syria is the front line of resistance, and this reality is undeniable. We have a duty to defend Muslims because they are under pressure and oppression, according to Soleimani, who is fighting the same war against the same foes he's been fighting this entire life. And for him, it seemed the compromises of statecraft could not compare with the paradise of the battlefield. And he supports Syria to the end. So this is an interesting article. We just finished it, and we'll see what happens. What I'm going to do is, with the grace of God, comes Sunday night will be my next show after tonight, and I am going to, and the name of the article, let me just get the cover, what I do with it. I don't know what the heck I did with it. Oh, but here it is. The title of here's the cover of the article. It's in the New Yorker magazine. You can look it up online. The Shadow Commander. General Soleimani is the Iranian operative who has been reshaping the Middle East. Now he's directing Assad's war in Syria. I will have a summation on this article. I'll point out a few interesting points, and I'll have an updated board on this whole thing, claiming that this all goes to the propaganda that Donald Trump claiming the claims by the mainstream media and the left, the lefty whack job Democrats is that Trump is a Russian agent. And quite frankly, based on all the ties and all the transactions, material support. I'll briefly go through it again. Material support, money, weapons, training, and human assets. So the Obama-Clinton crime family material supports radical Islamists with money, weapons, training, and human assets. And it was evidenced by the release of the 5 Iranian Quds Force leaders, which were directed by Soleimani in 2007 in Iraq. Iran's at the end of that one. They were released. They were detained in 2007, and Obama released them back to Iran. 5 Afghan Taliban betrayed with the Herullah, the Herat governor of the Afghan Taliban. And at the end of of this funnel of this transaction is Iran. He goes all the way to the Sahadan city of Iran. Long War Journal, Thomas Jocelyn. Foreignpolicy.com. Why is Mullah Mansour in Iran? Iran has an Afghanistan refugee camp, claiming to be a breeding ground of terrorists. Something to conceivably look at. 150 billion back to Iran. They released the sanctions. Obama puts Iran back in OPEC. 400 million to 1.3 billion unmarked bills to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. We have 4 sources. So this end of this funnel goes to Iran. I read a Wall Street Journal article, the negotiations between Kerry and Mohammad Zarif, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iran. 400 million to Iran was paid to them during the negotiation sessions, like a bribe. So Iran's the end of that funnel. Big time money went to the Palestinian Authority, Hamas, and Obama and Clinton waived those sanctions. And Iran's at the end of that funnel with the Washington Free Beacon, Adam Credo, Congressional Research Service. Tens of millions of dollars Iran gives Hamas, plus rockets to drop on Israel. And Hezbollah is right there, right? The 120,000 rockets on the ground. Conceivably, I don't have a picture showing 120,000 rockets, but let's just say Hezbollah has a lot of underground rockets, missiles. And then we got Morsi, Muslim Brotherhood, jet fighters, billions of dollars. I don't know exactly how much Morsi got and how many jet fighters he got from the Obama-Clinton crime family, but he got a lot of money and he did get a weapon or 2. And then I found this article, which I thought was pretty interesting. And I'm going to add to this, and we're going to look into this, by the Clarin Project. Former Egyptian jihad leader Morsi gave $25 million to Al Qaeda when he was the prime minister of Egypt. And this is Myra Cervesky with Raymond Ibrahim. Interesting. He's a Coptic Christian, and he knows the Islamist culture, the Islam, like he speaks the language. I think he speaks Arabic. Like, he's amazing. I listened to some of his videos. He's an amazing guy. So here's the article. We're going to look into this further as the days and weeks go forward. Former Egyptian Prime Minister Morsi, jihad leader, former Egyptian jihad leader claims Morsi gave 25 million to Al Qaeda. Speaking on Yahya television, a former Islamist who was the leader of Egypt's Islamic Jihad. That's an absolute radical Islamist entity who was previously a close confidant to the current Al Qaeda leader, Ayman al-Zawahiri. He's old though, but he is supposedly he's still alive. Asserted that during the reign of former Egyptian President Morsi, Zawahiri, the Al Qaeda leader, was given $25 million from Muslim Brotherhood leader al-Shatter to organize, fund, and assemble the jihadi groups in order to support the Brotherhood. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know, but it's out there. We're going to circle the wagons on that one. So we talked about that, and then I want to finish this, and we're going to. So we got Syria, 3 to 15 billion from Iran. So and that was evidenced in this Soleimani article. According to the article, Iran lent the Syrian economy $7 billion. So basically, Syria fronts for Iran with weapons and money, right? We had the Syrian rebels together. They couldn't fire at Assad. They could only fire at ISIS. And it has come out that if they're not going to fire at Assad and they're only firing at ISIS, and ISIS basically is al-Nurusha, is basically a Sunni militia that's firing at Assad, who are we fighting for? Who are we defending? On all intents and purposes, outside looking in, the Syrian rebel group that didn't last long, it actually ended up giving their weapons to ISIS. It started with 30 to 60 to 30 rebels to 8 or 9 to the thing totally was dismantled. They ended up giving their weapons to ISIS. If we're shooting at ISIS and we're not shooting at Assad, we're defending Iran, right? Crazy. And in Benghazi, it came out. It wasn't according to Kenneth Timmerman. It wasn't the Ansar Sharia. It wasn't the Living Islamic Fighting Group. It wasn't the Muhammad video. According to Kenneth Timmerman, it was the Iranian Quds Force, General Soleimani, and Hezbollah that put the hit on the Benghazi mission. The horrific hit, put the horrific hit on the Benghazi mission that killed 4 Americans, and the Obama Clinton crime family covered that one up. Covered for the Iranian Quds Force and Hezbollah. According to Kenneth Timmerman, they are the major leagues. When Soleimani, the Quds Force, Iranian Quds Force, and Hezbollah got a sniff of maybe this gun running going through through Libya, through the Benghazi, to the Syrian rebels in Syria that conceivably could have threatened the Assad regime. Soleimani stepped in with Hezbollah and did these unfortunate hit on the Benghazi mission and the 4 Americans. Very, very, very bad. Very horrific. Very bad. It was horrific. And unfortunately, the Obama Clinton crime family is covering for the Iranian Quds Force, Soleimani, and Hezbollah. And then we got North Korea gave missile technology information to Iran. The Obama negotiating team for the Iranian nuke deal knew about it and negotiated the deal anyway. There you go. And the last one is the Iran bomber approves many airliners, 100 airliners, 50 airliners, 10 airliners to the Islamic Republic of Iran, knowing that intelligence is claiming that Iran is utilizing the airliners to smuggle weapons to Hezbollah. That's the United States Senator Perdue and Israeli Representative Danny Danon, and in a letter to Kerry, and claiming that Hezbollah's got 120,000 rockets underground. No NATO country has as many missiles above ground. So a definite threat to world peace. And with all this data, and I'm going to have this laid out even better on Sunday night with the overview of the Soleimani article, who is the Russian agent? Full well knowing that Soleimani, I don't have the article here, it's over there, that Soleimani, according to Reuters, at least one time, according to Russian newspapers, 2, 3, 4 times, have been visiting Russia. Soleimani's been visiting Russia, asking Russia to step in and help them because they're very concerned. They want to make certain that the Assad regime stays in power, and Russia's influence in the North African, Middle Eastern region with Iran and Syria could keep Assad regime in power and obviously help Iran. So Soleimani was visiting with, according to one article, he visited with Putin. Some say he didn't. But let's say worst case scenario, he visited. He had at the least he visited the Minister of Defense of Russia, and so he's visiting with some senior officials from Russia. So trying to forge the Russian-Iranian alliance to keep Assad in power. They have an oil deal together with Putin. Conceivably, I don't have the agreement in my hand, but the Guardian reported it, and it's pretty, it's pretty all over the. It's been all over the papers, all over the publications, the last published reports that it went from a half a million barrels of oil a day that Russia was gonna buy from Iran. I think it's down to 100,000 barrels a day. And Syria is when I don't know what they're doing now. I mean, Iraq. I don't know what Iraq is doing now with the oil that they were buying and giving money to the Quds Force, according to this article. According to this article, with the Shadow Commander, the New Yorker article. So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna have a summation on this Sunday night. I'm gonna have an updated board. We'll go through it again. We'll see what happens from now till as far as current events. Then I'm gonna go into Sudan. I got the case. I'm gonna go with Sudan with al-Bashir, Osama bin Laden. I want to see where that takes us. Malik Obama, he's out there with Obama's brother's out there with Omar al-Bashir. He's a secretary of the Dawa Islamic Council. I want to see where that goes. And then we got North Korea lurking around, Turkey lurking around, and this Saudi Arabia-Iran conflict, the Sunni versus the Shia, and how Iran maneuvers within the Iranian global terror network, where it's even talked about in this article, the Soleimani article, the Sunni Shia, the Sunni Shia, the Sunni Shia nexus in the Iranian global terror network, basically. Okay, so that's where we're at tonight. It's really interesting. I'm so happy we finished the article. It was a 27, 25, 26 page article. We went through some interesting excerpts, and I got some interesting things confirmed that like the Iraqi banks, the floating of the currency by the Quds Force, the Sunni Shia nexus in the Iranian global terror network. So it was pretty interesting, All right, so I think we moved a lot of things forward, and obviously we'll keep up to date with the current events. So just a recap on Sunday night, I'm going to do an overall recap on this Soleimani article in the New Yorker magazine. I'm going to have an updated board. We're going to look into the Sudan case with Osama bin Laden, Omar al-Bashir, and Ayman al-Zawahiri, the Al-Qaeda leader, and see where that takes us. And then we're just going to move forward to see if there's anything going on in the current events. Okay, this is the Frankie Russo Show. Yeah. So I'll see you on Sunday night about 8:30. It's Frankie Russo Show, straight out of Brooklyn. See you in the future.